Okay, listeners, we're back, and once again, we are here with Nina Dalli Cardillo, and in the first segment, she was sharing basically her personal story, how she came to be doing what she's doing today. She is writing a book called Bigger Than Fiction, and is your website up yet, Nina? Do you want me to give it
No, the website's not up yet. I do have a blog, though, that I started, but it's called itsbetterthanfiction.wordpress.com.
Okay, so if listeners
and that'll
want
be
to
the name of the website when it gets up and going.
Okay, so she has a blog, betterthanfiction.wordpress.com. But after leaving the ashram, because your early experience of sensing the kind of let's just the dubious nature of people in positions of power and control, that was something that I experienced very early in my life as well with respect to the church and other organizations, because I was seeking, I would like you said, we hope this place or this organization or this practice is going to fill that kind of gnawing, what I call a God-shaped void, that just kind of lives inside of you. I have to understand what's going on. And this was an experience that repeated itself over and over and over again until I understood that the path of learning for me was going to be one of personal revelation, that I had to throw out everything that I had been taught and start over. But so you went to Chaco Canyon for the Harmonic Convergence.
I did.
Tell us what happened there.
So that was, at that time, that was in late 80s, I had just left the temple, and I was going through trying to free myself, because while I was in there, I was very dedicated to the patterns of thinking. And that's where it's interesting, because religions are very much a part of promoting mind control, because you have to get into a certain mindset and you're not allowed to think anything else. And that's kind of where the peer pressure comes from.
Right.
So in order for me to leave the movement, I had to sort of break through a lot of the conditioning that I was being given, that, you can't go out in the world, and, it's your karma is going to come get you, or whatever fear-based philosophy I was being given, not to leave. And yet in my heart I knew that I had gotten what I needed. And, my experience in the movement itself was that I always chose my path of devotion. And I felt like I got the best of that while I was there. I got into services that were really suited me in my nature, and I was always in a protective environment, and I seemed to feel like I had guardian angels around me. But part of that is because I chose that. I chose that I was going to be sincere on my path, and I wasn't going to allow myself to create that disassociated action that we get when we're in religions, that we will kill in the name of God or do something that we know is not right in the name of this, faith that we're on. So I had to really break free of that. And then as soon as I leave the temple, then I hear of this harmonic convergence. And I didn't know about metaphysics, the New Age community, or the metaphysics as well as at that time. So I became really curious, learned about all the different vortex points, and chose to go to Chaco Canyon, New Mexico. And it was there that I started being turned on to some channeling. And one of the channelers was Jamie Sams. She's an author. She wrote The Path of Power. She created the medicine cards. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
I am familiar.
But at that time, she was a channeler, and this channel being was speaking about alien races coming to the planet and influencing our history and influencing us on the planet. And so that started breaking me out of the mindset of the Krishnas and going into a more broader perspective of what's going on here. What is channeling? Where's this information coming from? And what is this New Age all about? And so then I started opening up to more and more philosophies that were, stretched away from India and went into more mystical traditions.
Okay. And, I'll tell you today, somebody coined a term for the New Age movement because when I first learned of it, metaphysics and so forth, I basically started out with Christian metaphysics and branched out of, the Christian religion altogether. As I said, I didn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. I do believe in a divine creative source. But the term that was coined was the New Cage movement, because just like you said, every religion, what happens is that there's so much out there that is claiming this is the way it is. This is what is going on, and this is, and even in this movement, there isn't tolerance for an individual's questioning of the tenets of whatever the organization may be. And so we do see this repeatedly happening, and this is, as you're going to point out to us, this is a form of mind control. And it's also been said that whatever this unseen hand, whatever this hidden shadow government, whatever is taking place, basically it manages to infiltrate anything that comes along. And I don't know if you hold to that or not, but there's our music. We're going to break. This is going to be it's already a really fascinating conversation. So stay with us, listeners. We'll see you in just a few moments. Okay. Now, if you're a regular listener, you know that we've presented several different viewpoints on what this unseen hand or these the origins of people, whether they're people or not on the planet. We've gone through aliens. We've basically discussed, Julian Rose, are they cyborgs? We've discussed, John Lash's work, are they archons? And, of course, last week we had Desert Owl, who says they were watchers. They were a spontaneous evolution of humankind. They're humans. So we're presenting a whole lot of different views because, again, it's the really important thing is not what's exactly right. The really important thing is to begin to engage reality, to begin to get back to thinking for yourself and to be able to think critically, to be able to allow for a left-right brain, interconnection that allows for revelations, right, in your particular life where you need to go. And Nina's particularly adept at that. She doesn't take anyone's word for anything.
It's true.
Yeah,
and I use I let my intelligence. I'm okay with using my intelligence if I'm presenting with some information. Even if I agree or like the information, there's still a part of me that has to find a balance with it and ground it. I had that same experience with the New Age thing. I was a little less woo-woo than other people that were into the New Age. I couldn't just believe airy-fairy things because I was being told. There still needed to be some correlation with the reality that I was living in on this planet Earth at the same time.
Right. But you did say that, the way that you sift information is you become an observer. You're an observer. Yes. So and I understand, to me, we're multidimensional beings. Even if we're not conscious of the other dimensions that we exist on, this whole setup is multidimensional. So it makes sense that it could be a very convoluted, multifaceted, place of information coming at us. And, for most people, when you're in the world of duality, you need to be black or white. You can't be gray. There's no room in the middle. And so you either believe it full on or you don't believe it at all. Whereas for me, I live in the gray area. I live in the area of, yes, I think that could be possible, but I don't know for sure if it's really true, Right.
And then I go from there. And generally what happens over the years, over 30, 40 years of studying this stuff, I've formulated my own core belief, even if some of the details might not be correct or not. You can get the core thing of what's happening.
But see, isn't that also the most important thing? In other words, we have people all over the world questioning what's going on in the world. We have all kinds of activist groups and all kinds of, harmonic groups that are, working for world peace and healing. We have it's so fragmented. And one of the efforts I've been making recently is how do we begin to pull people together to identify what are the core what matters? What's the core?
What matters?
And let's get ourselves together around the core fundamental truths as they've been revealed, things that we all agree on, and let's as they say, the devil's in the details. It's the details that'll mess things up over and over and over again. But can we accept, number one, that history as it's been taught to us is a lie?
Right.
Can we accept that the people that are in control of the dominant institutions in our world right now are marching us towards, a possible extinction event with their recklessness and their sickness? Can we agree that, in other words, can we agree that there are enough resources that people on the planet should not have to starve or die for lack of water? Or, can we agree on some certain fundamental ideas?
And can we really trust that inner feeling that we have that something's not right? even if it goes against whatever the words were being told. That's the thing I see about the hypnotism. It's interesting that in our culture, most people know that the government lies to us, and yet we still listen to them.
Right.
And we still believe what they're going to tell us, and then we act shocked when, oh, my God, Obama didn't do what he said he was going to do. It's like, duh, yeah. Don't you get that by now? Like, at some point we have to start acting on that intuitive knowing instead of just keeping us always in the question mark phase of our existence.
Yeah. But I want to ask you a question about another area of your life because it's of particular interest to me, and it's something that I only recently began to comprehend, this full-out war against the divine feminine or females. You moved on from, kind of your more philosophical or spiritual studies to botanical studies and became an herbalist and a gardener and made your own medicines and you cultivated a natural way of living. But then you got involved with the wise woman traditions, and you made a statement here, there's so much more to this female genocide than most people know. So this brought you into a whole other segment of what was being perpetrated against a particular segment of humankind. Do you want to share with us a little about that?
And that also starts from the Krishna movement, too, because it's a patriarchal society. It's coming from ancient India, which is very patriarchal. So they had a lot of attitudes against women. Women were less intelligent, and women were the cause of the problems in the world, and, on and on and on. So that, in a sense, it's interesting because being in this extreme organization, there were many good things that I got from my experience. And I had very good experiences while I was there, but at the same time, there were the troubling areas were things like, I'm less than you because I'm a female, and that whole India attitude. So when I left the movement, I actually became a much stronger female and had more faith in myself as a female. And that carried into when I went to the Wise Woman tradition, where I learned more about the history of the witch hunts. And I don't even like to use the word witch hunts because to me, witch hunts is like the way we banter the word terrorism around. That's the tagline the oppressors gave to attack these women of power, these women that were medicine women in their communities. They were mystical beings, and it was the more scientific age of the patriarch that was coming in and wanting to suppress our using intuition, wanted to incorporate the medical. They were starting to get into creating chemical drugs, and the men wanted to control delivering babies. The men wanted to control, the physicians wanted to control the health, so they needed to disempower the females in their community. Because up until that time, a lot of these, a lot of the agrarian societies had medicine women. The women of the community, the ones that were the healers. They're the ones that had the knowledge, and they're the ones that delivered the baby. So the original history of the witch hunts actually started in Germany, which to me I don't find coincidental at all because a lot of things start in the Aryan countries. And that's a whole other subject in itself, talking about the Aryan influence on the planet. But it started out with the physicians actually coming in and starting to accuse these women of doing, quote-unquote, witchcraft. And it was a way to turn people away from what they were doing and to turn people against the women. There were some towns in Germany where all their women were killed. By the time they were done with the town, there were no women left. And it's amazing when you think about that. How could the men of a town allow that to happen? But somehow it did. Somehow the mind control came in and they convinced the men that these women were evil and they had to be gotten rid of. And so they were burned at the stake or hung or however they decided to do away with them. And throughout history, and then it moved through Europe and eventually came over to America. So in American history, we always make it seem like, oh, it's just a little event that covered 10 years in Massachusetts and the East Coast. But in actuality, they don't even know the numbers of how many women died during that Holocaust. They think it could be in the hundreds of thousands, even upwards to about 1 million.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, here we come down to forbidden history. We come down to the fact that what we're given as history is nothing. It has nothing to do. It has no relevance, no bearing on what actually happened. And again, it goes back how these types of the way that things have been working are working over hundreds and thousands of years. So there is some type of mind control. There's some type of mechanism in place that has really closed humankind off from comprehending and responding through their hearts, through their inner knowing. Otherwise, as you said, we could never let things like this happen. And of course, you just take the short history of the United States, and we can go back and look at some of the things that have happened that have affected, huge all sorts of communities and people and children, and the experimentation. The Nazis came out of Germany, and they basically were secreted away to America. And I just want to make a point, listeners, when Nina brought up the Aryan race, last week we got 5 days of something called the Forbidden History. Man says, I'm not a writer, I'm an orator, I'm a researcher. And we gave him 5 shows, Nina, to kind of walk us through what he calls the Forbidden History, which leads to what he says are an Aryan race. But anyways, that people can go back, and if you didn't hear that, last week's shows, you can get the archives. We're here with Nina right now. So, you began to synthesize, and when you were learning all of this, it sounds to me like this is where you began to ask the question, how are minds controlled? What's going on here? How is
and obviously I had some experience being in a religion where you can see how the peer pressure and how your environment plays a part in that. And that's the sad thing about the whole mind control, child abuse thing that's going on in the world, is that the parents are involved. There's people that are co-conspirators in the process, and they all go along with it.
Right.
And obviously they have belief systems that justify and rationalize. That's where we get that this dissonance, that cognitive dissonance, when we're doing something that we know is opposite from what our faith is telling us.
Right.
But
I just had a conversation this morning with my husband. My daughter was homeschooled for a lot of years. Chose to homeschool. She's struggling with education right now. She's actually a great student. But one of the things that the schools do to indoctrinate students into blind obedience to authority is you get so many absences, so many tardies, blah blah blah. And she wanted to take a personal day today. She went to a concert yesterday. Says, "Mom, I'll be a wet rag at school. I'm doing fine with my work." And I said, "Okay." So I told my husband, who brought up Catholic and is very much is not one inclined to look at these things, and he got really really upset. And I said, "Think about your reaction to this. What is so wrong with a young adult deciding that she wants to take some personal time?" Right. And she's getting her work all done, and she's fine. But so that is part of just the collective think tank, that things have to be done a certain way. But we can look through history and realize that modern education was basically set up the way it was so that we could serve the needs of the industrialists. Right.
We're actually slaves. We don't realize we're slaves. And we think that we're free, but it's things like that let you know that you're a slave. What? You want to take a personal day from school? How dare you?
Right. And we are going to the last break of the first hour. So listeners, we'll be back in a few moments. We'll wrap the first hour. Nina will be here with us in the second hour. And we're going to talk much more specifically in the second hour about this thing called trauma-based mind control, because it affects each and every one of us. Become aware of it. You can work our way.